the city that fell silent. Have you ever heard of a city that cried out in agony and the world looked away? In 1937, during the height of the Second Sino-Japanese War, the ancient Chinese capital of Nanjing, also known as Nanking, became the scene of one of the most horrific war crimes in modern history. Over the course of just 6 weeks, more than 300,000 civilians were slaughtered, not in battle, not in defense, but in cold blood. It wasn't just murder, it was mass rape, torture, burning alive, decapitations, and unimaginable sadism. The city of Nanking became a graveyard soaked in blood, a place where humanity was abandoned and darkness reigned. And while the world now speaks of Auschwitz, Hiroshima, and Rwanda, Nanking is a name often forgotten. But to forget this story is to allow its horror to happen again. This is not a story for the faint of heart. This is the truth about the Nanking Massacre, one of the darkest chapters in human history that many still try to forget or deny. Let's dive into the chilling reality. Chapter 1: The Fall of Nanking. By the end of 1937, Japan had already invaded much of northern China. After brutal battles in Shanghai, Japanese troops pushed inland toward Nanking, then the capital of China. On December 13, 1937, the Imperial Japanese Army, fresh from victory, marched into the city, expecting resistance. But what they found instead was a largely undefended civilian population. The Chinese military had already retreated, leaving behind a helpless city filled with women, children, the elderly, and wounded. Japanese soldiers saw an opportunity, not for military conquest, but for dominance through terror. In their minds, these civilians weren't humans. They were the defeated, the voiceless, the disposable. What followed was not war, it was systematic extermination. Chapter 2: Murder Without Mercy. For 6 weeks, the soldiers of the Imperial Japanese Army turned Nanking into a city of the dead. Eyewitnesses, survivors, and even some Japanese soldiers themselves would later recount the horrors. Mass shootings of thousands of civilians and POWs lined up along riverbanks and gunned down, their bodies tossed like garbage into the Yangtze River. Bayonet practice on live victims, including children and pregnant women. Beheadings used as sport, some soldiers competing to see who could decapitate 100 people first. Victims were often buried alive, set on fire, or forced into ditches and burned en masse. Some were forced to dig their own graves before being executed. Others were tied together and blown up with grenades for target testing. Entire families were wiped out in front of each other. No one was spared. It wasn't just murder, it was methodical cruelty designed to terrorize. There was no logic, no strategy, only carnage, fueled by hatred, adrenaline, and the belief that they would never be held accountable. Chapter 3: The Rape of Tens of Thousands. Perhaps the most gut-wrenching aspect of the Nanking Massacre was the mass rape that occurred on a scale almost beyond comprehension. It's estimated that 20,000 to 80,000 women were raped, often publicly, violently, and fatally. Women and girls, some as young as 8 years old, others as old as 70, were gang-raped by multiple soldiers. Pregnant women had their wombs slit open. Daughters were raped in front of mothers. Sisters were raped beside each other. In many cases, entire families were forced to witness the horror before being murdered themselves. Some women were taken as comfort women, a euphemism for forced sex slaves, while others were simply brutalized and left to die. Babies were tossed in the air and impaled with bayonets, used as sick entertainment. Mothers begged to be killed instead of their children, only to be tortured before their families' eyes. It wasn't just about domination, it was about utter dehumanization. In Nanking, rape was a weapon. Sexual violence was a strategy of war. Chapter 4: A City of Witnesses. The massacre was so appalling that even foreign nationals living in Nanking, mostly missionaries, doctors, and business people, were horrified. A group of these individuals, including German businessman John Rabe and American doctor Robert Wilson, set up the Nanking Safety Zone, a small protected district in the city. Although they managed to save around 250,000 civilians, they could only do so much. They documented what they saw, photographs, letters, diaries, and testimonies that would later serve as undeniable proof of the atrocities. John Rabe, ironically a member of the Nazi Party, wrote in his diary, "It is not a war anymore, it is massacre. The streets of Nanking run with the blood of innocent people." Dr. Wilson operated for hours each day without anesthesia, trying to save the mangled remains of survivors, some with their faces ripped apart, others with limbs missing from grenade blasts. They weren't just witnesses. They were the only hope in a city that had lost its humanity. Chapter 5: A deafening silence. After 6 weeks of terror, the killings slowed, mainly because there were hardly any victims left to kill. By January 1938, the Japanese military command began restoring order, partly in response to international outrage. But by then, the city was a hollow shell of its former self. An estimated 300,000 people had been killed. Tens of thousands had been raped or mutilated. Bodies filled rivers and streets. Dogs fed on corpses. Fires still smoldered in homes where families had been wiped out. And yet, for decades, the world remained silent. China was in chaos, World War II was spreading, and the world turned its focus elsewhere. Nanking's cries faded into history, unspoken, unrecognized. Chapter 6: The Struggle for Truth. After World War II, the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal prosecuted some of the officers responsible for the Nanking Massacre, including General Iwane Matsui. Several Japanese officials were executed, but many others escaped justice. And to this day, Japan's acknowledgement of the massacre remains a deeply political issue. Some textbooks in Japan downplay or deny the massacre entirely. Some leaders have refused to issue formal apologies, and a few even suggest the death toll is exaggerated. Every denial is another stab in the soul of Nanking survivors. Even today, many descendants of victims live with trauma. Some survivors never told their families, choosing silence over shame and fear. But truth doesn't die. Truth waits, and it returns stronger than denial. Chapter 7: Remembering the Victims. In 1985, China built the Memorial Hall of the Victims in Nanking Massacre, located near one of the mass graves. Every year on December 13th, sirens sound across the city. People stop. They bow their heads. They remember the mothers who were raped, the babies who were bayoneted, the fathers who died screaming, trying to protect their children. They remember, because the world cannot afford to forget. Because what happened in Nanking didn't just stain Chinese soil, it stained the soul of humanity. We remember, so it never happens again. The Nanking Massacre is one of the darkest stains on human history. It wasn't just war. It was a deliberate, unthinkable act of brutality carried out on civilians, helpless, voiceless, forgotten. We often say never again, but too many times it has happened again. In Cambodia, in Rwanda, in Bosnia, in Syria. But memory is power. Telling the truth is how we honor the victims. Educating others is how we prevent the next atrocity. And standing against silence is how we fight for justice. Let Nanking serve as a reminder of what happens when hatred, dehumanization, and unchecked power are allowed to reign. Let it be a mirror of what we must never allow again. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Like this video to raise awareness. Comment your thoughts. Do you think enough has been done for the victims of Nanking? Share this with friends, classmates, and anyone who values truth over denial. Subscribe for more deep dives into untold history, global injustice, and the raw reality behind the headlines.